It's our first update from the 2025-26 season for the New Jersey Devils. James Burley, Dan Rebane here with you on Puck on the Parkway. It's a 4-1 start for New Jersey. Despite losing the first one on the road to their old foes in the Carolina Hurricanes, they get four straight wins for the first time in a couple years now. And I think things are clicking really well. Things feel really good. Vibes are high in the Garden State. Dan, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. Coming off last night's game at Montclair State University, we were watching New York Red Bulls 2 absolutely thrash Carolina Core to move on to the second round. I'm in high spirits. Obviously, the Giants tried to kill my spirits at the game while I was watching it, but you know we got to move on there. Jackson Dart's a real quarterback, but Devils hockey's here and they're clicking, man. They're clicking.
Yeah, I couldn't be at Montclair Soccer Park, unfortunately. I was actually down by the Jersey Shore covering some other lower level soccer in the area. But that's enough about our personal lives. Let's talk Devils. Um, we haven't spoken, Dan, or at least not in this forum since before the start of the season, where we had some ambitious predictions. But I mean, the Devils are playing up to their level right now. Certainly, that first game against Carolina, they were outmatched a little bit. Carolina's been perhaps the best team in the NHL to start the season. 5 wins out of 5 games, 10 points, top of the division. They're firing as we expected,
Yeah.
but the Devils are right there with them. They weren't dominated in that game by any stretch, and starting on the road against a few difficult teams, they followed that up with a good win against a now fledgling Tampa Bay Lightning, I guess we should say, and followed up with three more. It's the first time they've won 4 games in a row since the start of 2023. That 2022-23 season, historic for a number of reasons. But Dan, just like before we get into the hockey of it all, the vibes are so high right now. I mean, the team just had their Halloween party. That's always good for clicks online, and they opened up their home opener against two of the toughest teams in the league and found a way to win those. I mean, there's some injuries that we got to talk about as well, but just how positive are things at the moment? It's just as good a start as we could have hoped for.
I mean, vibes are absolutely through the roof. I was there for the home opener, which kind of fell on my birthday, so that was kind of a good thing. So that was good to see the win. But yeah, vibes were high. We were in the the fan fest before the game, and there was a ton of people there. At the bars, at what listening to the concert before the game. Interacting with everybody. I mean, things before the game were already high, and then you get into the game and seeing this team in person, like every time I go there, I'm like, man, they just really do have some special players on this team like that I've never seen in my life before. Like, we all have seen, the good teams of the past of the mid 2000s and that Stanley Cup team in 2012, but this team just moves different, man. With their skating ability, with their offensive, elite offensive prowess. It's different to see in person every time, and it's a joy to watch. We'll get into deeper talks on each game, but vibes are high. Everything's clicking from the power play. When they're not scoring, power play is generating a lot of chances. Penalty kills on fire. I mean, the third line is clicking. The fourth line is even doing its work. Um, so everything is going right so far, other than a couple of injuries here and there. But Sheldon Keefe must be looking at his team and like saying, "We might have something here heading for the rest of the year."
So you were at the fan fest. Were you there for the red carpet?
No, I was not there for that, unfortunately. It was a bit too early in the day. I had to pick up my friend from work, but I mean, it looked great to me. So
I was gonna say if you had an opinion on who was the best dressed, but I guess if you didn't see it, we can't ask you that.
I think I saw the video after. It was definitely, I think, wasn't it Dylan with the hat? Like, I mean, he just showed up like
Dilly
class,
brought
like
it. I
10
mean,
out of
yeah.
10 outfit. So
Well, you heard it here first. Brandon Dillon, best dressed from the red carpet, certified by Daniel Rebane. I think that they haven't had an easy game yet. there's no easy games in the NHL, but they haven't had a win where they really beat the pants off the other team. But that's because they've played five good teams. And not only are they playing the team that is on top of the league-wide standings in Carolina, but they've also played each of the last two Stanley Cup finalists from the past two seasons and beat both of them in their own backyard. So we spoke about that Hurricanes game. The Columbus game I thought was a big test as well to continue the momentum from Tampa Bay, which they did on the road again, and not a game that came easy at all. Then they welcome home to the Florida Panthers, and I would say that was the first time they really looked, in addition to the Lightning game, where they were the dominant team for 60 minutes. I mean, Dan, you were there. It's not been the Panthers of the last two seasons for them to start the year, but still a resounding win, especially in front of the home crowd, and just a confidence builder. And they went and followed that up against Edmonton as well, and they pulled away from that in that game in such a mature way. You know, you were hoping that after the first three games, you got some good play from the likes of Connor Brown. You know what you were going to get from Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt. You needed Jack Hughes to have a little bit of a coming out party, and that's exactly what he did against Florida. And then again with two beautiful goals, highlight reel ones against the Oilers. That zone entry on the pass from Pesci, and then with the forecheck with him and Bratt. That move on Calvin Pickard just absolutely sent him for a walk. And that's exactly what you like from Jack Hughes. When he's on his game, he looks like just completely unbeatable. And you combine that with the likes of Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt playing up to their level. You got the best out of Timo Meier, who's got a handful of goals now to this point of the season. And Dawson Mercer was instrumental in that Nico Hischier goal against Florida. So you had so many different players who are stepping up, and that's not even to get to the blue line, where Luke Hughes has been really good as well. And you know, he was a player that is going to have to live up now to a $9 million price tag, and early days into that contract seems like he's doing it. Just what have your impressions overall of just the success on the ice?
First, I want to say we have to, dive into an investigation on why every team's backup goalie just turns into prime Patrick Waugh whenever he plays the Devils. Like Tarasov in person, like was playing out of his
He
mind.
was
Like
amazing.
that game could have been like like 6-1 or whatever. In person, obviously, Florida took that early 1-0 lead, and that was just like they left someone open at the far post, and it was easy to happen. But after that, Florida was playing their game, but the Devils just played better overall. Once they got that first goal from Jack in that second period on the power play, I think things just opened up way more for New Jersey, and they owned that third period. That third period was right in front of me. It was six rows off the glass, so I saw everything in that O zone. And they were doing everything right in that game, and Edmonton as well. I mean, you know, we saw we were expecting, Connor McDavid to probably score his first goal of the year, but I think Jack Hughes showed him up. I mean, that was his best game of the year so far, and he showed why. When healthy, he's potentially a top five player in this league. So, I liked what I've seen so far from this team, but we also said the same thing about it last year. So I think the biggest thing for this team is consistency and staying healthy. And if they can do that, getting past, the Christmas break with keeping that consistency, I think we have some good things on our hand.
Yeah, and that's a convenient segue to our next point is that there are injuries that we have to speak about. Early in the season, for them to have this many injuries, although not anything too serious to any key player of the team. Of course, Jacob Markstrom, the goaltender, is out for a few weeks, but I mean, doesn't seem like that much of an issue when Jake Allen's playing this well. And that offseason signing, which, there was space to ride with Nico Dawes as the backup and use what money they ended up spending on Jake Allen to maybe reinforce the forwards, which is something that a lot of fans would have liked to have seen. But I mean, that signing looks like a masterclass from Tom Fitzgerald. Now we're only 5 games into the season, but knowing the injury history that this team has gone through, having a reliable backup in Jake Allen, who could start for several NHL teams, especially with his current form, has been immense. But as for elsewhere on the ice where there's injuries, we knew the start of the season was going to be without Stefan Noesen, Jonathan
Mhm.
Kovacevic, Seamus Casey, a number of other players. But Evgeny Dodonov goes down early in the year. That gives a window for Zach McEwen to step into the lineup, and he gets injured shortly thereafter. And it looked like, he's a player who's been, we spoke about this before, a physical presence who has been able to score points consistently in the AHL. It's a matter of him being able to be an NHL regular, and he had a decent shot, and unfortunately for him, went back into the injured
And
list.
his one game, he played really well too. So
Exactly.
that was kind of the disappointing thing.
Yes, and it looks like Stefan Noesen might be available tomorrow night against Toronto, and if
Not
not,
tomorrow night. He
against
already confirmed he's not playing tomorrow night, but likely for Wednesday.
yes, because he's been taking line rushes with the fourth line next to Luke Glendening and Paul Cotter, and that kind of begs the question now with how good certain players have been stepping into the lineup.
Mhm.
When Dodonov comes back from injury, which is not going to be super long term, who's going to draw out of the lineup?
Yeah,
Because I think,
that's the
Luke
question.
Glendening coming in on a PTO at the start of the season, he's been immense as the fourth line center. Not only has he been good on a line that is, punching above their weight with Cotter, and briefly it was Gritsyuk, who's now stepped into the third line and been very good as well. But Brian Hallinan came in, and he's a player that, we've seen now for a little while be able to be good in the taxi role between Utica and New Jersey. Some people maybe thought that he was had a decent shot of being at the NHL level for the start of the season. It didn't happen, but Glendening has come in and been fantastic, both in that fourth line and on the penalty kill. So it doesn't seem like you can bring that guy out of the lineup. He's got the 4C spot pretty locked up. I'm interested to see who's the guy that has to get the short end of the straw when Dodonov comes back in, because he was the intent behind having him was to put him in the top six. And granted, he may not spend the whole season there, but he's going to come back into the lineup. I'm curious. What do you see of this situation moving forward?
I think short term, many might not like it. I definitely wouldn't like it, but I could see them, if things aren't clicking as once everybody's healthy. Like if the team's clicking, the easy answer is Dodonov just waits for his turn until someone like kind of gets injured or, has a couple bad games in a row. But I think the short term answer is probably Gritzia comes out. Or he's like rotating in and out with someone. But I think long term, I think Palat's that guy that kind of gets that short end of the stick because, you know, the Donoff you kind of want in the top six early on in the season because he brings that skill and speed still. And then eventually you want Gritzuk to take that step and get there. So whenever that move eventually happens, Palat's obviously, slated for that bottom six. But where does he slot in? Cotter's playing good. Glendenning's playing good. Projectively, Nason's playing good. Connor Brown and Cody Glass are playing excellent. So I think it could be him. Maybe it's Cotter that steps out for Palat and Palat goes into that fourth line. But I don't know. I think though that's definitely a good, question to be in a spot of where it's like, wow, who am I taking out? Am I taking out, Andre Palat because he's not playing the best? Am I taking out Gritzia? Like that means the team's playing good, right? That they have to make this decision, this hard, tough decision. So it's definitely a good position to be in, but personally, it would be Palat for me. But with a rookie in his first year in North America, I could see it being him for the first couple of games.
I mean, who would have thought that professional tryout Luke Glendening would have, potentially caused this many problems to to uh, to Tom
And
Fitzgerald
what
and
like,
Sheldon
but
Keefe.
like when you look at his career, excellent faceoff guy, has speed, and is definitely one of the better penalty kill guys that on the team. Like I always thought he would get that fourth C spot. And if he got that spot whenever he's healthy, he's gonna be in the lineup. But like, he just brings a lot of intangibles to the game. Like sometimes in games, like he might get hemmed in his own zone. Like that's gonna happen. Obviously, it's a fourth line center. That's aging, and or a fourth line overall. Like there are fourth lines for a reason. But when he's playing like that on the penalty kill, when he's playing like that, winning faceoffs in his own zone, winning extra possessions for your team, bringing that, that little added oomph that they didn't have with certain players last year on that fourth line. I mean, just look at that effort on the penalty kill to set up Brown's goal. Like, obviously, it was funny to see in live time where he like whiffs at the puck, but he gets that puck over to Brown. Brown, seals the game basically for the Devils. Like those two on that first penalty kill unit have been excellent. And I said it to my dad. Like many teams don't like barely have two penalty kill lines that they're like, you know what, we really trust this. The Devils have three.
Yeah.
Like with the addition to Brown and Glendening, you have Heischer and Mercer, and then at the end of it, you have Jack and Bratt. Like they trust all three of those lines to plan a penalty kill for extended portions of the kill. So I mean, this team's on special teams on penalty kill. They were already elite last year. They might have the best penalty kill this year. So it's gonna be really interesting what decision Keith makes. But I think Lugan Glendening is a lineup lock for the time being.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can take him out of the lineup. I mean, you could make the argument that Paul Cotter, is naturally a center who's been playing as a winger for the past few seasons at the NHL level. Could he be a guy that, is your 4C? I don't know if Paul Cotter's that player. Luke
Yeah,
Glendening has been the prototypical fourth line guy, 36 years old, 870 career games. I have to bring this up
Michigan baby.
because now a Michigan boy, and now I have to say this because it's on my mind. Someone will be playing in their 1,000th NHL game this week. Our old friend Adam Henrique is on currently 998 NHL games. Recently played in, I believe, his 996th or 997th at the Prudential Center against New Jersey. An absolute legend who, unfortunately, his number 14 is currently being occupied by Glendening, but maybe one day we see Rico
Question.
back in Jersey.
Question for you. Obviously, I don't know if you watched that most recent game, but the question of the game was who was the last draft pick to
Yes.
to play 1,000 games, like Devil's draft pick to play 1,000 games. And I really struggled with this because I was
Really?
like,
He got it immediately.
I was really thinking because like the answer was Travis Zajac,
Yes.
but I was like, was he the last one? 'Cause I was really thinking like that because he was drafted in
Drafted
'04.
2005, oh 04.
He was
Okay.
drafted in '04, right? And he played, in 2007. I'm like, there's got to be someone like after that's played 1,000 games for the
I'm trying to
Devils
think. Andy
and
Green went undrafted, didn't
undrafted. But
he? Yeah.
like it, oh man, it just shows how bad drafting was for this team for a while. Like
Yeah.
we all love Lou Lamoriello, but those mid 2000s, late 2000s drafts were oof, they were real stinkers, man.
The other one would have been Greeny, if I'm thinking about it, because he played over 1,000 games,
Yeah.
but he wasn't a draft pick. He
Yeah.
went into the NHL undrafted. I
Exactly.
mean,
So,
he's absolute legend, Andy Green, on some of the worst Devils teams ever, unfortunately, but he
so,
was
so shout
a
out to
great
Adam
leader.
Henrique, man.
Yeah.
He
Shout out
deserves it.
Rico. Devils legend, soon to be considered widely an NHL legend. Love him. Um, where were we before we went on the Adam
We were
Henrique
talking
tangent?
about Mason coming back, and
Yes.
and we were on injuries. So yeah.
Yes. With Stefan Noesen coming back and to the lineup, I mean, it presents an opportunity now for a difficult decision to be made with who draws out of the lineup, especially as well when Dodonov comes back. We were talking about the penalty kill and special teams as well. You mentioned that the Devils have three reliable sets of penalty killing forwards: Heischer, Hughes, Bratt, Brown, Mercer, and Glendening. That's absolutely huge. Four of those six guys could also take faceoffs, which you always need on the penalty kill. It's such an interesting dichotomy because now in the NHL, second power play units barely exist, right? They
Hmm.
might get 25, 30 seconds if they're lucky at this point. Whereas you need more penalty killers than ever
Oh yeah.
because you have to just manage those shifts. It's also an interesting thing because it's not only about fatigue during the kill itself, but it's about keeping guys fresh
Yep.
because it's never a good thing to have your third liners or your second liners or whoever it may be sit on the bench for 12 game minutes straight. You need to get those
Exactly.
guys on the ice, get their legs moving. So the depth of this Devils team is certainly improved upon and very noticeable. They went 16 straight penalty kills without conceding one, and then conceded a consolation against Edmonton late in that game when it was all said and done. Currently, they got a 95% penalty kill percentage. That's good enough for third in the league at the moment. So it's still early. Teams are still working on ironing out their power plays. The Devils eighth in the league, tied for eighth, I should say, with a 25% power play unit. And according to MoneyPuck.com, their expected goals for percentage is seventh in the National Hockey League at 5-on-5, which is improved from
Very improved.
2024-25 last year. So they're playing in the upper echelon of every team in the league. Their overall record is good enough for, I believe, seventh in the National Hockey League. The analytics have them up high as well. You said it before. It's about consistency. This is more or less where the Devils were last year. I think their 5-on-5 numbers were perhaps a little bit lower, so this is more
Yeah.
encouraging. But still, the wheels fell off the wagon at the end of December. They have to find a way to avoid falling into that same trap again, Dan.
Yeah, again, it's just about keeping it going, man. Playing every game like it matters, like not taking days off in practice. And again, I think when Nason and Dodonov come back, I think that's a good thing for this team because now you got two extra players fighting to get back into this lineup, and it's not like they're giving their place back. They have to come in and make Sheldon Keefe make that difficult decision of who to bench. So I can't wait to see what this lineup looks like in a couple of months. But again, man, everything's looking really good. Defensively, I think Brendan Dillon looks really good, man. I
Yep.
mean, coming off his disc replacement surgery, he looks good. He's everywhere. I mean, his stick is blocking passes like him, Luke Hughes, Siegenthaler. I mean, seeing Siegenthaler in person, like that close up, because usually I'm higher up, I'm in the 100s, but this
Mhm.
time I was in the lower bowl, living the life, having a good time on my birthday. But seeing Siegenthaler just working those corners, his stick is everywhere. I mean, laying on the line of block passing lanes, like this guy's a stud. I remember people a couple of years ago saying, "Yeah, we should trade him. He's not worth it." I'm like, he's one of the like right now he's one of the better defensive defensemen in the league, and
The fact that we got that guy in a trade is still one of the it's one of the best looking moves in hindsight that this
yeah.
Devils team has made in a long time.
I mean, they almost scored an all Swiss goal that game where it was Siegenthaler leading the break. He passes it over to Nico, and Meyer has a one timer that's saved. I mean, I'm loving what I'm seeing so far. Defensively, they look good. Simon Nemec is having his ups and downs, but again, that's still to be expected. I'd rather him have his ups and downs early in the season, and he gets it going in the middle of the season and late in the year. So I think that's where they could kind of improve is him finding that consistency like we keep talking about. I think, once he finds that, man, once his confidence is up, he's gonna be a good defenseman because you see it, man, with him pinching, his free flowing game in that offensive zone. You see it, man, and I think he can really be that guy for this team going forward. If he's not traded for anybody, because he could still be involved in trade, but for right now, I see it for him. I see that potential to be in the top four in the near future.
I mean, we could think about this. We could look at this Devils roster and add an extra defensive line, assuming everyone's healthy. You could add a fourth D pairing and a fifth line, and still have competent NHLers at that level. You're going to have extra forwards like McEwen and potentially, like you mentioned, Andre Palat moving forward. You'll have
Yeah.
extra D-men. Most likely Shimon Nemitz and Seamus Casey when Jonathan Kovacevic comes back from injury, which again he's on the IR going to be a while. Um, the depth of this team is something that it still amazes me that I'm not very used to this. It's been a long time that we've looked at this roster and just noticed name after name of guys that just really weren't good enough to be on a successful NHL team. And now this team's a little bit spoiled for riches. But once again, the name of the game is going to be consistency. To start the season, they've got five players who are at least a point per game. And they've got a couple guys who are right there as well. It's only 5 games, but Brat's
They have
got three
five
goals,
guys
four
with three.
assists.
They have five guys with three goals
Exactly.
as well. So
Dawson Mercer's got 3 goals, and he's on 5 points. I mean, that's as great a start as we could have hoped for him. Same thing with Timo Meyer, who's firing.
your
Yeah, I
prediction's
mean,
looking good so
look, I'm
far.
not going to sit here and say it's proof. The proof is in the pudding. He's going to score 40 goals now. But the fact that he's scoring goals this early in the season, it's not something he's done wearing Devil's red yet.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely encouraging. Luke Hughes has got 4 assists. Nico Heischer's on 6 points. Jack, started a bit slow, but had several multi-point games since then. Is now on 6 points in 5 games. It's going to be about staying healthy long term and being consistent. That is going to be the challenge for this Devils team if they want to stay at this level. And should they stay healthy and consistent, they still have another level to jump in order to be a Stanley Cup contender. I can't wait till the next time they play the Carolina Hurricanes because that's the yardstick, right? That's the way we measure up to see if this team can handle it with the big boys. Still something they got to prove. Let's pay attention to the goaltenders real quick because while we've noted how good Jake Allen has been, I don't think we've really sunk our teeth into it. Um, he's playing out of his mind. 35 years old, currently got a save percentage of 934, 1.88 goals against average. Not currently breaking any records in terms of the analytics at the moment, but he's kept the Devils in games. And that's all you can ask for of a goaltender, especially when you have this good of a team in front of him. Jacob Markstrom out for several weeks with that issue that we saw when he actually came in relief for Jake Allen, who was
Cramping.
cramping. Never a good situation, but I'm confident that this Devils team is going to be able to withstand that sort of issue. They have a goaltender in Jake Allen who's more than capable. They have a backup now who's normally the third goaltender in Nico Dawes, who's more than capable. We were both shocked that he actually passed through that waiver process for the first time in his career, where he was eligible. We were certain that he was going to be picked up by a team to be an NHL backup full time. He's certainly good enough to do that. He's played several seasons, a handful of games in the NHL, and has been good. He's still the only Devils goalie to win in an outdoor game as well. So you have to give him credit for stepping into MetLife Stadium and doing the job there. I'm still confident that the Devils can withstand the storm of being without Jacob Markstrom moving forward. And Nico Dawes, I'm especially happy that he's still a New Jersey Devil / Utica Comet.
Yeah, I think even if Jake Allen, falls down from his 934 and becomes like a 915 guy, that's really good for this team. That's exactly where you want your goalie to be at for this Devils team. Is just above average. Be an above average goalie, and most nights you're gonna win games for this New Jersey Devils team. And a team that could use the Nico Dawes is Edmonton. I'm surprised Edmonton didn't, take him. I would have definitely taken a shot. He's got way more potential than a Calvin Pickard. No offense to Calvin Pickard, he's a good goaltender in his own, but Nico Dawes' potential is there. So glad he got through, and Devils needed him. Jacob Markstrom goes down with another knee injury, which sucks. He's out week to week, probably like 4 to 6 weeks again, like he was last year. So they're gonna need him. I think Jake Allen probably gets 2 to every 1 game for Nico Dawes going forward. He'll get his first start on Wednesday at home. So we'll see how he looks this year. But I'm real confident in what they have with those 2 goalies going forward for the time being.
Yeah, I'm really not so worried. And the one thing that I do want to bring up is that Jacob Markstrom's contract is up for renewal, and
Yeah.
there have been discussions about what the path forward is. I know he wants several years. I don't know exactly. I've saw he wants a long-term deal,
Yeah,
essentially.
I think nobody said the number, but it came out that he was looking for 4 or 5 years, and I'm fine with that if he takes a lower cap hit like Jake Allen did. I'm not saying he's got to take the 1.8 that Jake Allen did, but if if he's getting 4 or 5 years and he takes like 3, I'm fine with that, right?
I think that it could, lock the Devils into a goaltending situation that doesn't look as favorable as it does in 2 years' time. But I'm starting to think about it now. You're going to have two goalies that are on the other side of 35, and I think they both are 36 and 35. Markstrom's 36, Allen's 35. If I'm correct, I could be wrong about that, but I think 4 or 5 years down the line, probably a little too long for a Markstrom
But yeah,
trade.
but like at that
Like
point,
at
if
3 million,
they make that, if they fall off, you can get off that contract very
100%.
easily. Like
And
like
I'm not worried about that. Also, I
yeah.
think that in a year from now or 2 years from now, or perhaps even this year, I don't think it's confirmed that Jacob Markstrom is even the starter. I think it's a
Mm,
very real possibility that Jake Allen continues to play out of his mind. And, Markstrom sees fewer games from the start than he thought he would have. And that's okay as well. Like
yeah.
normally you don't want to have I
A
mean,
true split, yeah.
it's an ongoing debate in hockey is how how valuable is it to have a duo tandem? I mean, we saw it last year in Toronto where I mean they had the best goaltending situation in the league, arguably with Joseph Wall and Anthony Stoller's New Jersey native. Shout out to him. Um, but eventually they had to lean one way in the playoffs, as
Mm.
you often do. The same sort of thing happens with Carolina, and I don't know if that's a situation they want to be in, and they could find themselves in that situation this year just because Jake Allen's been that good. Markstrom is a bigger goaltender. We've seen goaltenders of his size have a difficult time later in age standing up to the test of time, but he's a goaltender who bloomed later anyway. So I
Mm.
think there may be less concern about that, but I say that with him injured at the moment. So I'm not necessarily against that idea or for it at the moment. I think probably shouldn't jump to a conclusion on that right away. I think there's some more time to figure out the direction they're moving forward. But as it pertains to now, I love the goaltending situation. I'm not bothered by it.
All I'll say is if the cap hit is low enough where, it's in the range of like high twos, low threes, if it's in that range and you give him
Totally
four
worth it.
years, it's worth it. Just because not only do you like, you solidify your goaltending situation for now and the next couple of years, but it also doesn't rush Mikhail Yegorov at college. Like he can stay an extra year, which I want him to do anyway. I want him to stay for an extra year because remember, he left the USHL, a half year early and played a half season at Boston last year. And we saw it, this last week against Michigan State. He got lit up a bit. It's gonna happen. And he just needs that extra. I feel like he needs that extra year at Boston where he just gets all those reps that he's getting over there, then makes the jump to the AHL, gets a year and a half there probably before he makes that full jump to the NHL. Because again, goalies, man, it takes a long time
Yep.
for them to fully establish themselves in the NHL. Just look at Askarov out in San Jose. He's not even the full starter right now. And he's one of the better goalie prospects in the sport.
I think he's
So
the number one at the moment.
exactly. So it's gonna take time with Yegorov. Like people are projecting Yegorov to be in the Devils lineup in like 2027. It's like like he still has to develop. Like he's still a young goaltender. So if they can lock up Markstrom for what we were talking about for 4 or 5 years, in 3 years, if he's not playing well, you can trade off him. You can buy him out even. Like the cap hit won't be that high, especially where they're at in their careers. Like someone's gonna want a goaltender of Jacob Markstrom's pedigree, even at 38. So I think it's a no-brainer. As long as the cap hit's low enough where you're giving him you know, that length, that safety net for a goaltender, that security. I'm fine with it. So we'll see. Right now, for the present, we love the goaltending situation. Nico Dawes is one of the better third goalies you can have in the league. So glad that he's still here. He'll get his first start on Wednesday, and we'll see how he plays.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about just goaltenders in general who, really need time to
Mm,
develop and become an NHL regular. You ask any NHL player, anybody who's been at both the NHL, AHL, or any other level below that, if you ask them what the biggest difference is in getting to the NHL, it's how good the goaltenders are. That's just
mm,
it. It just always has been the case in order to be an NHL goalie, you have to be a different beast. And Yegorov might be one of the best in college hockey at the moment, might be one of the best, non-professionally based goaltending prospects, to differentiate him from a guy like Askarov. I mean, he's still got a long way to go to be NHL ready for how good he's been.
exactly.
Like as he's a super exciting prospect. I fully believe that the Devils should put stock in him being the Devils'
Yes.
number one, being a franchise goaltender. But that's several years down the line. 2027, 2 years from now, that seems far too early for a guy like him. He's not even played professionally in North America yet. Give a guy like that time. Enjoy the goaltending situation while we have it. And it's cheap now. Even before a potential, pay cut for Markstrom years down the line. They're not spending a lot on goaltending as it
No.
is. So, they're in pretty good shape. It must be said. As for this week, they've got a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. It's going to be Jake Allen against Toronto and Nico Dawes getting his first start of the season against Minnesota. How do you think the Devils shape up in these next two?
I mean, it's definitely a test. Like going up to Toronto is never easy for this team. Toronto's really been like hit or miss this year.
Yeah.
They've gone to overtime a couple of times. They lost both times, I believe, to Detroit. They played Detroit in like 2 times in like 4 days or whatever it was, and they lost both times in a home to home. So I think, anytime that Sheldon Keefe comes back to town, the circus is around the Devils and him as well. Like the focus is just on him squarely as the former Toronto Maple Leafs coach and how he's doing. So, the microscope's going to be on this game a lot up in Canada. This will be another test for them. Obviously, they passed their past two with the former Stanley Cup contenders in Florida and Edmonton. But now you got to go up to Toronto. You got to go up into that building where you haven't performed well recently, especially last year. I don't believe they did that well up there. So that's going to be a good game. If they could come out this week or those two games with one win and one loss, you take that. If you can go one win and one loss in overtime, that's perfect. So interesting. I want to see how they do up in Toronto, but I think against Minnesota at home, I think they could come out with a victory there.
Yeah, Toronto coming off of two overtime games, a win at home against the Rangers, and then a loss at home against Seattle. So this is part of their big opening season homestand. This will be their fifth home game in a row.
Damn.
So that's not always an easy thing to go up against. The Devils, after going to Toronto, have a couple of home games, or I should say a few. Minnesota, San Jose, and Colorado. We know Nico Dawes will be playing against Minnesota. And then after that, it's everybody's favorite road trip. They go out west for another game against the Colorado Avalanche. So done and done with Colorado in October, and then they go out to California for an early trip out west, which is always good to get out of the way early
Yeah,
in the season. So
get
no
those out of the
complaints
way.
there, and that'll be a good test. The Sharks not the best team, the Ducks also working their way up through a rebuild, and the Kings, a playoff contender as well out of the Pacific
No
Division. So
Kopitar.
no Anze Kopitar, who will be playing in his final NHL season this year. Um, you have to give a shout out to the legend, even though I will never forgive him for 2012.
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty much everything we had to get through, Dan. Anything else
yeah.
you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, all good. I'll give a shout out to my Michigan Wolverines and 6-0 in college hockey. They look excellent. Um, I just want to say I've been covering Army hockey a lot this year, so seeing like it's such a big difference between top programs in college hockey compared to like middling programs. Like Army off to a good start. I don't want to say like they're middling, but like they are what they are. They don't have like talent like Michigan or Minnesota or Boston. The Boston schools have, but like seeing like a Michigan team like snap the puck around, it's so like nice to see. It's beautiful. They lead the I think they lead all of college in scoring. They've only given up 7 goals in 6 games. So
Pretty
they
darn
look
good.
good. They look good so far. So that's all I want to say. I will be up at West Point on post again on Saturday as they play the AHA conference champions from last year, Holy Cross. So let's see if they can pull out a weekend sweep of a good team.
West Point hockey coverage from our man Daniel Reban. Where can folks find your West Point coverage?
They can find it at Bad Dog Sports. Shout out to them. They've helped me get into that door. And I used to go up to the games all the time as a season ticket holder for Army back in the day when they were actually really, really good. They were winning conference championships under Brian Riley. Now, they made it to the semifinals last year of the AHA conference. So let's see what they do this year. Off to a good start. They beat Northeastern on the road up in Boston, so that was a good win. Um, so it's going to be a fun season.
Exciting stuff for the Black Knights and exciting stuff for the Black and Red of the New Jersey Devils against
Yes, sir.
Toronto tomorrow and then against the Minnesota Wild right after that. Going to be an interesting next few weeks with the California road trip. Not sure when you'll hear from us next, but for now, this has been Puck on the Parkway. For Daniel Rebe and I've been James Burley. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let's go Devils. 4-1 to start the season. It's been great.
Let's go, boys.